Future former Vice President Kamala Harris certified Donald Trump's election victory this week, making Harris the first woman in history to admit she'd lost an argument. The majestic spectacle of the American transfer of power from a dementia-riddled corruptocrat to a raving berserker who wants to conquer Greenland took place on January 6th, the fourth anniversary of the most horrible event in all of human history, a horrific insurrection, comparable in horror to the horrors of World War II or the Holocaust, except instead of blood-drenched continental devastation and the unimaginable atrocity of a genocide, this was a guy in a Viking hat wandering around the Capitol aimlessly. But horrible. No one could forget where he was on that horrible day, so during the certification ceremony, I approached a young man walking past the Capitol building and asked him, "Do you remember where you were on January 6th? The young man replied, quote, "Of course I do. I was walking past the Capitol building when a man approached me and asked if I remembered where I was on January 6th. And I told him I was walking past the Capitol building when a man approached me and asked me where I was on January 6th, unquote. I then explained that I wasn't asking him if he remembered where he was this January 6th. I was asking him if he remembered where he was on January 6th, 2021, to which the young man replied, quote, "What are you joking? That was like 4 years ago. Why the hell would I remember that?" Unquote. So there you have it. Memories seared by trauma into the very soul of our nation. As America tried to move past that horrible moment when Donald Trump horribly tried to overturn by force the sovereign will of American people, living and dead and entirely non-existent, the country hoped to turn the page by welcoming the new president, Donald Trump. Meanwhile, the sitting president, and occasionally barely standing president, Joe Biden, approached the end of an honorable career of public service, influence peddling, plagiarism, and blowing with any political wind that might allow him to keep milking money out of his office for even another hour. In a meditative interview with a potted spider plant he mistook for one of those newfangled young podcasters with the crazy hairdos, President Biden reflected on this great nation he has loved to the tune of about $30 million in payments from foreign nationals. Biden said, quote, "This is the United States, for God's sake. You give your life to it, then the Democrats toss you into the gutter like you're the Constitution and replace you with some half-black chick. When I was a young man, let me tell you, a girl like that would have been waiting tables and bending close when she refilled my coffee cup to let me sniff her hair so I'd give her a whole $1 for a tip. Instead, she comes to me and says, 'Joe, this ain't your election.' Not my election. I could have taken Trump apart. I could have had class. I could have been a contender. I could have been somebody instead of a bum, which is what I am. Let's face it." Unquote. As a gesture to show his deep feelings for the country that has paid him so well, Biden held a final ceremony to award the Presidential Medal of Freedom, our highest civilian award, to such patriots as George Soros, Hillary Clinton, Darth Vader, the Wicked Witch of the West, that drooling cave troll from Lord of the Rings who looks like a deformed King Kong wielding a huge death hammer, and of course, one of the convicts Biden pardoned who was on death row for killing and eating his wife and children after keeping them locked in a root cellar for 180 days. All the award recipients gathered at the White House for the ceremony, except for the cave troll who refused to appear at the same event as George Soros, saying that would be beneath his dignity. As the transfer continued, President-elect Trump prepared to take office by engaging in some brinkmanship with Chinese President Xi, sneaking up behind Xi and flicking him in the back of the head, then shouting, "Ha ha ha, Major Brink." Trigger warning, I'm Andrew Klavan, and this is The Andrew Klavan Show. All right, and speaking of the transition, by the way, all of us at the Daily Wire will be live as the Daily Wire goes to Washington, D.C. for the inauguration of Donald Trump. I'll be there. I hope you will be there, too. I've never seen one of these before, so it's exciting. And you can watch us live and join the fight at dailywire.com/subscribe. We are back here now, laughing our way through a new birth of American freedom. If you have a comment, leave it wherever you're watching the show, on the street, you can just paint it on a wall nearby. If you're at home, just, your wife will love this. You just scrawl it with a crayon on the bathroom wall or something. And we will, if this comment is disgusting, just morally reprehensible, racist, sexist, Islamophobic, you name it. If it's that low, we will read it here because that's who we are. Today's comment is from Clayton R., 1886. He says, I love the winning montage and need to hear it slightly more than taking in oxygen and only slightly less than learning to spell Klavan. By the way, it's Klavan. There are no E's in Klavan. Yeah, now listen, I know we've been kidding around about this, but we're just not doing the happiness montage anymore. It's like a joke is a joke, but we've run it into the ground. It was funny at first, but now I think it's just gone on too long. So let's get right on to today's episode. The times they are changing. We're going to talk about all sorts of things, the fires and something you probably didn't notice about this new Bob Dylan movie, which is really interesting. But I want to ask you this. Am I the only... I've been having this very weird theological thought, okay? And I'm not putting this forward seriously, but I'm just telling you it's been in my mind. I have sometimes read the history sections of the Old Testament, Chronicles and Kings and all the different stories, David, the stories about David and everybody. And I've had this kind of half satirical theological point, and I say it's half satirical because I'm not a theologian, right? So I never quite trust my own readings. I read carefully and I read a lot, but still, I don't want to say anything that your church disagrees with. But it always seems to me that all through the history of the Jewish people, God is saying to his people, his chosen people, stop killing babies. And the Jews who represent everybody in relationship to God, they keep saying, well, can we do it a little bit? And it's like, no, stop killing the babies. And it's like, well, can we do it on holidays? No, absolutely. Well, how about, my wife likes it because she's a pagan. No, do not kill the babies. And when they stop killing the babies, anytime they stop killing the babies, things go great for Israel. And anytime they start killing the babies, things fall apart for Israel. And so on the basis of this, I had this kind of theory that because we repealed Roe v. Wade, God might offer us a second chance before he destroyed us in a hailstorm of wokeness and, Democrats. And, I thought maybe he'll give us a chance to straighten this thing out. And then when Donald Trump won his victory, I thought, this is it. God has forgiven us and is going to give us a chance to get out of this baby killing thing. And now I feel that this victory has so enraged Satan that he's throwing a temper tantrum. Like Dennis Prager walks out of our live coverage of the election and has a terrible injury, falls in the shower and has this horrible injury. And Biden is taking revenge on the voters with all these destructive executive actions. California is burning to the ground. I got friends who are losing their homes and in evacuation in terrible times. And I've got all these friends. You can hear that I've been sick. I've been sick for now like 4 weeks. And I have had this cold, I think, for 4 weeks. I cannot get rid of it. It feels a little better today, so hopefully I'll get through the show. But all my friends have come down with horrible illnesses, not just my old friends, but my young friends too. They're getting terrible diseases. And I feel like I'm under spiritual siege, like the devil is saying to me, all right, you beat me this time, but you're not going to enjoy it, which I know all of which is probably insane, but I'm just telling you what I'm experiencing in this moment. So I prayed about it finally. And this is absolutely right. An angel came to me in a dream, and this was his reply to the devil.
We're going to win so much. We're going to win at every level. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. We're going to win economically. We're going to win with the economy. We're going to win with military. We're going to win with healthcare and for our veterans. We're going to win with every single facet.
Zippity-doo-dah, zippity-yay. My, oh my, what a wonderful day.
We're going to win so much, you may even get tired of winning. Yay! You'll say, please, please, it's too much winning. We can't take it anymore.
I feel pretty, oh so pretty. I feel pretty and witty and gay.
We have to keep winning. We have to win more. We're going to win more.
So I'm a pretty open book on this podcast, but at home, I value my privacy. I hide away, and there's nothing worse than realizing your neighbors can see right into your living room when you're rehearsing your latest novel, making a fool of yourself. You got to get blinds. You got to get great blinds that do the job. It's 2025, and your blinds might still be from 2005. That's why I'm excited about 3-Day Blinds. They're the leading manufacturer of custom window treatments in the U.S., and they make the whole process ridiculously easy. You can do all the shopping right from the comfort of your home. Right now, if you use my URL, 3dayblinds.com/Klavan, they're running a buy one, get one 50% off deal. Their design consultants have over 10 years of experience and come right to your home with thousands of samples. No more guessing what your blinds will look like. The best part, they handle everything: design, measuring, installation. Plus, they can even set you up with smart blinds that connect to your home automation system. After helping over 2 million people get their dream window treatments in the past 45 years, they know what they're doing. Right now, get quality window treatments that fit your budget with 3-Day Blinds. Head to 3dayblinds.com/Klavan for their buy one, get one 50% off deal on custom blinds, shades, shutters, and drapery. For a free, no charge, no obligation consultation, just head to 3dayblinds.com/Klavan. One last time, that's buy one, get one 50% off when you head to the number 3DAY blinds.com/ how do you spell it? KLAVAN. Chapter 1, Zucker Punch. So in all seriousness, I feel like we are waking up from a nightmare, a national nightmare, a bout of insanity. You know, the Washington Post had this pompous, insanely pompous thing on its banner that said, democracy dies in darkness. I was always joking, yeah, it dies in darkness because you guys turned out the light and beat it to death. Yeah, I mean, these are guys who would not cover a Democrat scandal if it was like a Rottweiler and bit them on the crotch. You know, it's like they wouldn't cover it. But it may not be true that they have anything to say. They're just pompous idiots. They're completely useless people. But sanity dies in silence. This is a truth, okay? How did so many of us, how did so many people Americans, let themselves get intimidated into not seeing what they saw? Journalists, entertainers, business people. Don't talk about black crime because that's racist. Don't say abortion is an obvious atrocity. You know, that's anti-feminist. Don't mention Islamic and violence. That's, Islamophobia. Don't say transgenderism is a mental disorder. Don't say that women achieve supreme happiness as mothers and homemakers. Harrison Butker, the great kicker from the Kansas City Chiefs, he makes a speech in praise of motherhood, and people say that's controversial. Motherhood is controversial. That's how crazy. It's the insanity of it all. And I'm not even talking about whether you agree with what I just said or not. It doesn't matter. You can disagree. I'm just talking about the regime of silence, the intimidation of silence, not just for the last 4 years, but for 10, 20, 30, 40 years, building worse and worse, where even college students are afraid to debate. And, my pal Bill Whittle always made this brilliant point. He would always say the only people who fall silent when you accuse them of being racists, are people who aren't racist, because they're the only people who care about not being called that. Racists are happy if you call them racist. That's what they are. So that means that only hateful people get to speak the truth, right? You see what I mean? The only person willing to discuss crime in black neighborhoods or Islamic violence is a guy who hates blacks and Muslim people. And, if you can't point out that George Soros is a villain, which he's an international villain in my opinion, because that's anti-Semitic, then the only people who call out George Soros are these groypers, these horrible actual Jew haters. And if you say, well, if you elevate homemaking, that's sexist, then the only people who can talk about the truth about women are guys like Andrew Tate who don't like women. So, I don't do that. I've worked really hard not to do that here because I don't believe in it. I'm not going to praise Andrew Tate or the groypers or people who hate black people. I believe you have to love your neighbor in the image of God. That's just straightforward what I believe, even though that can sometimes be difficult. But I am going to speak the truth about these things as I see it because I'm on a mission from God. And that's why this, Mark Zuckerberg, is actually the biggest news of the week. I've told you again. I keep saying this over and over. Trump's victory is not just about Trump's victory. The core of it, the essential meaning of it, is this victory over this censorship regime, this regime of lies, this empire of lies, and not just an empire of lies, an empire of oppression, right? So Mark Zuckerberg put out this thing saying he's going to change now. The days of censoring and canceling conservative voices are over. He says the election was a cultural shift. It was a moment in time that he's going to follow that shift, and he's shifting along. Here's just a clip of that as cut two.
Here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to get rid of fact checkers and replace them with community notes similar to X, starting in the US. After Trump first got elected in 2016, the legacy media wrote nonstop about how misinformation was a threat to democracy. We tried in good faith to address those concerns without becoming the arbiters of truth. But the fact-checkers have just been too politically biased and have destroyed more trust than they've created, especially in the US. So over the next couple of months, we're going to phase in a more comprehensive community notes system. Second, we're going to simplify our content policies and get rid of a bunch of restrictions on topics like immigration and gender that are just out of touch with mainstream discourse. What started as a movement to be more inclusive has increasingly been used to shut down opinions and shut out people with different ideas, and it's gone too far.
Now, the minute I saw this, I thought, this is huge. This is actually a big, big deal. And a lot of people were yelling at me because they don't like Zuckerberg and the things he's done. And he pushed Trump off Facebook, and he used his money. He used government money. But no, I think it was his money. He was using his money to skew the election and all this stuff. I never have trusted Zuckerberg. I have said on the show that he keeps making the same speech over and over. Oh, yes, I take full responsibility for that, and we really have to do better in the future. He's like a guy who beats his wife, you know. He's like, oh, yes, sorry, honey, I love you, I'll never do it again. And then he whacks her around again. And I'm not talking about why he did this, like, oh, he did it out of the goodness of his heart. I mean, Donald Trump recently put out a coffee table book with a picture of him meeting with Mark Zuckerberg, and the caption was, "We are watching him closely, and if he does anything illegal this time, he will spend the rest of his life in prison." So he has a good motivation to do what I'm doing. I'm not praising his motive. But still, I have to say that this speech actually did sound different than the usual Zuckerberg, because it's a very specific set of goals. And it's amazing capitulation to the freedom fighters of the right, a complete surrender to Elon Musk. And you remember the contumely, the absolute attacks that Musk suffered and is still suffering for basically just letting conservatives speak on X. And he's still being attacked for calling out the rapists in England, that nasty Elon. What's wrong with you, Elon? Calling out rapists of children. I don't understand that's the real problem is Elon Musk. But the thing about Zuckerberg, I've met a lot of businessmen. They are inherently moral cowards. All the pressure's on them. They have this business. Some of them have built the business like Zuckerberg built his. It's everything they are. It's their life's work. And the government can take it away from them like that. And the customers can take it away from them like that. And so they're always clinging on to this stuff. And listen, you shouldn't judge them too harshly for that, because a lot of us, most of us don't have what they have and haven't been tested at their level. I mean, I've thrown away things of tremendous value to say what I want to say a lot of my career because I'm on a mission from God. But most people don't do that, right? And I don't care about Zuckerberg. He doesn't matter to me. I don't hang out with celebrities. Most of the people in this business, they love meeting the powerful people and saying, oh, yeah, he's a nice guy, or he's this guy and a guy. I could not care less. I would rather sit and talk to a homemaker about her children than most billionaires about being billionaires, because they're boring and they don't know anything. So, I don't care about him at all. I don't care about celebrity haters of blacks or Jews or women. Screw all of them. I care about this country and you, where people can speak the truth to one another in goodwill, without hating anybody, and discuss what we should do, and then fire the people who don't do it. The Joe Bidens and the Gavin Newsoms and the Nancy Pelosi's who don't do it. They just only attend to their own power and their sense of make-believe virtue. And this is a moment, and we can't let this moment go by. This is a moment when the waves have parted. It's like glasnost. Somebody wrote an article in the Wall Street Journal saying it's like glasnost in the Soviet Union, when people could suddenly expose all the bad stuff that was doing. And here is what is happening on the left. See, if they were sane, if they were rational, the media would now be saying, we really got to reform because we really fell in line with this oppressive regime, and now we've lost the trust of the people. But that's not what's happening. Here is, after the certification of Trump's election on January 6th. Here's what Sonny Hostin on The View said about January 6th, cut 3.
I just remember after January 6th, you had someone like Mitch McConnell placing the blame on January 6th where it belonged, squarely on Donald Trump's shoulders. Mm-hmm. And then you started seeing people backtrack that and losing their moral center. You had Condoleezza Rice, I believe, on this very show saying, we need to move on from January 6th. Mm-hmm. I say no. You don't move on, because January 6th was an atrocity. It was one of the worst moments in American history. And when you think about the worst moments in American history, like World War II, things that happened, like the Holocaust, chattel slavery, We need to never forget.
It's chattel slavery, the guy with the horn hat, it's all the same thing. And my feeling is, Sonny, you just keep thinking, sweetheart. That's what you're good at, because this is exactly where we want them. They cannot grasp the truth, which was that their philosophy was wrong, their policies failed, they lied and censored to keep power and prestige, and it all came tumbling down because new media broke them. That's the story. End of story. But until they figure that out, we've got them right where we want them. And we have got to go forward with a positive philosophy of truth-telling without hatred. And don't sign on to these guys who got glamour. They got glamour from the censorship. You censored somebody about attacking George Soros. That gave glamour to people like Nick Fuentes, who hate Jews, right? You censor people who say things about women, about the fact that they're vulnerable and need our protection and our love. You give glamour to people like Andrew Tate, who at least say something and say, yeah, they're sensitive and vulnerable, so we can beat them up and pimp them out. That's what he's saying. No, that's not what we want to say. And don't get distracted by the news. Don't get distracted by the news of the moment. It's important. Follow it. Yes, of course, you should know what's going on. But this is the moment for us to seize this opportunity to roll back this nightmare of censorship, because it has driven us all insane. They wanted to put our minds in a prison, but you only have to look at Sonny Hostin to realize they put their own minds in a prison. Let's lock them in there while we escape. When I'm feeling lousy, I'm sure you can hear it in my voice, I'm just feeling absolutely terrible. It's really, really hard to sleep. I don't sleep much as it is. I don't need that much sleep, but it is really tough to sleep. And that's why I want to talk to you about Beam's Dream Powder. This is a science-backed, healthy nighttime blend for sleep. When I found Dream, at least I knew I could fall asleep. That was the most important thing. It works. I started sleeping really well. It really put me down, and I appreciated that. Plus, I wake up refreshed and not groggy. I would never use any chemicals because I hate that feeling of being groggy. With better sleep, your energy and focus comes back. You feel like you can tackle your days instead of just getting through them. Other sleep aids can cause that grogginess. It's just awful. Dream contains a powerful all-natural blend. That's the big thing. It's all natural. It's reishi, magnesium, L-theanine, apigenin, and melatonin, all of which you can look them up. They help you fall asleep, stay asleep, and wake up refreshed. Now, as I start 2025, I'm determined to keep this going. I want to be able to fall asleep. Dream is something that I just love drinking at night. It's made a big difference. If you're like me and you struggle with sleep, there's no better way to start this year than with consistent, restful nights. Dream will help you feel your best every single day. The ultimate sleep refresh for the new year. Try Beam's best-selling Dream Powder. Get up to 40% off for a limited time when you go to shopbeam.com/Klavan and use code Klavan at checkout. That's shopbeam.com/Klavan. Use code Klavan for up to 40% off. And you're thinking, they tell me how to spell Beam, but they don't tell me how to spell Klavan. Here is how you do it.
K-L-A-V-A-N, there are no E's in Klavan.
Chapter 2, Shout, Fire, Cry. And I should mention, just a second ago, we heard the news that Trump has been sentenced in that bogus New York case. I don't want to sound like Donald Trump, where everything is the worst and the best and the most, but that may be the most corrupt trial I've ever seen. It's not the most corrupt trial in American history, surely, but it is one of them. It is like out of the movies, to charge a man and not know what you've charged him for, and have the jury vote on without saying which crime he's committed, and the crimes that he was convicted of are actual federal crimes that the judge had nothing over. But they sentenced him unconditional discharge, but now they've won the point that they can call him a convicted felon. And my feeling is, you call Donald Trump a convicted felon. I love it. I eat it. I eat this stuff for breakfast now, because I know that if they don't reform, we will run over them. If we just keep our heads straight and our hearts full of, decency, we will just destroy them if they keep up with this stuff. Call them a convicted felon. I love them. And so that's the news of that. Meanwhile, in California, I have so many friends in California. I'm getting letters from people in show business who don't realize I left, because by that time I was hardly working in Hollywood. And they're sending me, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And I'm saying, "Yeah, I left town. I blew town. And I was warned by an angel in a dream." And, so talk about spreading like wildfires. I mean, my house where I used to live has been evacuated. I don't know if it's been destroyed, but it's been evacuated. And people are pointing out, quite rightly, that Donald Trump, among other people, has been talking about this for years. Here's just a quick clip of him talking to Joe Rogan about what's wrong with these devastating fires that hit California every year. This is cut 4.
The water isn't allowed to flow down. It's got a natural flow from Canada all the way up north of water, more water than they could ever use. And in order to protect a tiny little fish, the water up north gets routed into the Pacific Ocean. Millions and millions of gallons of water gets poured. I could have water for all of that land, water for your forests. Your forests are dry as a bone.
Yeah.
Okay?
Dangerous.
That water could be routed. You could have everything. Oh, not only dangerous, billions of dollars a year they spend on forest fires. And, there's a case with the environment. They're not allowed to rake their forests because you're not allowed to touch it. And all they have to do is clean their forest, meaning rake it up, get rid of the leaves, get rid of, leaves that are sitting there for 5 years. And
we'll certainly get rid of the dead fall.
And get rid of the trees that have fallen.
I hike those forests. I know those forests really well. Donald Trump is precisely right. And I can tell you exactly what's going to happen. They're going to tell you, California has droughts, California has winds, California has forests, it's a desert, things burn in California, and this is just the way it is, and has not, and the reservoirs were full. All lies. It's all lies. If you read the great American novel, East of Eden, it starts out describing the weather in California. The weather in California has not changed. There's 7 years of drought. There's 7 years where it doesn't have drought. But the thing is, they do not build reservoirs, and he's right. It's to protect the smelt. It's really, that's really what we need is the smelt. So you don't have enough water when you could have water, as Trump says, it comes rushing down from the hills, they'll have all this stuff. Climate change has moved the storms to Alaska, so we're not getting as many storms. Nonsense. Read the book. It was written a long time ago, and yet it describes the weather just as it is. They're right about the forests. The forests, I know those forests. I love those forests. They do not clean them. They do not do the stuff you have to do, the controlled burns that you have to do. It's all about the environmentalism. It's all about the right wing. And this DEI stuff it should be spelled DIE because it's just death. It is just death. They've got a fire department that is now run by a lesbian who has committed herself to DEI hiring. What you need, I don't care what color they are, but you need big men to be firefighters. That is what you need. And so here we have the fire chief, Kristen Crowley, talking about her new DEI plan. This is after she takes office, cut 5.
So by creating this new bureau, our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Bureau, now we actually have the staff to do the work when it comes to doing a deep dive in regard to how we do business, how we take care of one another in the fire stations and in our work environment.
Yeah, so this is what this looks like. Here's the assistant chief, Kristen Larson, because only lesbians named Kristen are allowed to become firefighters in Los Angeles. Listen to what she says about being a diverse firefighter. Cut 16.
You want to see somebody that responds to your house, your emergency, whether it's a medical call or a fire call, that looks like you. It gives that person a little bit more ease, knowing that somebody might understand their situation better. Is she strong enough to do this? Or you couldn't carry my husband out of a fire, which my response is, he got himself in the wrong place if I have to carry him out of a fire.
That is just amazing to me. That is just, it's his fault that he's caught in the fire. I don't want somebody who looks like me. I want somebody who looks like Schwarzenegger. That's what I want. I want somebody to come in who looks like Schwarzenegger. Meanwhile, the mayor who's in Ghana, I'm almost sure, I'm saying this from off the top of my head, but I'm almost sure that this is the same Karen Bass. She's the same person who attacked Ted Cruz because he was out of Texas during a snowstorm. She's in Ghana knowing these fires are coming. They always come. And the other thing is, of course, the homelessness. I was in Nairobi in the 90s and saw the slums there. And I thought, oh, my God, there is no such thing as poverty in America. And I'd been everywhere in America, including Appalachia, and seen some terrible poverty, but it was nothing like Nairobi. Parts of L.A. now look like Nairobi. And a lot of those guys are the homeless people who are mentally ill and on drugs. A lot of them cause the fires either through carelessness, sometimes through malice. But that too is contributing to this. So, And the thing is, this DEI stuff didn't start with her. Adam Carolla described what it was like to apply to be a fireman when he got out of high school. I think it was cut 6.
I graduated North Hollywood High with a 1.7 GPA. I could not find a job. I walked to a fire station in North Hollywood. I was 19. I was living in the garage of my family home. My mom was on welfare and food stamps, and I said, can I get a job as a fireman? And they said, no, because you're not black, Hispanic, or a woman. We'll see in about 7 years. And I went to a construction site and dug ditches and picked up garbage for the next 7 years. I got a letter in the mail sent to my father's house saying, your time has come to do the written exam for the LA Fire Department. I took it, and I was standing in line, and I had a young woman of color standing behind me in line, and I said, just out of curiosity, when did you sign up to become a fireman? Because I did it, or a person, 7 years ago. And she said, Wednesday. That is an example of my white privilege.
Right. So this is nonsense, this transplanting of values. The only thing that matters about a firefighter is, can they fight fires? It's one of the most popular jobs because, unlike the police, who are heroes, the police are heroes. People get in Hollywood, handsome guys get paid $250,000 a week to pretend to be police. Police are heroes, but they're excoriated because nobody likes being pulled over for a traffic stop. Nobody likes it when their friend is arrested for robbing a store. So the police get attacked all the time. But if you're a firefighter, you're a hero and everyone loves you. You can hire the best and the brightest people to become, never mind the brightest and the strongest people to become firefighters. There is no excuse for hiring women for that job. They cannot do the job the way men can do it. And there's no excuse for hiring a person according to the color of skin at any single time. All of this is this valuation of values that throws us off the truth and drives us insane because they silenced people. They intimidated people into silence when they called it out. It is the same thing in Britain. This Elon Musk put out a tweet because he was reading the records of these gang rapes, these Muslim Pakistanis grooming little girls and raping them repeatedly in ways that I can't even talk about on the air. I can't even talk about it off the air because it sticks in my throat. But he tweets out what this is, and it starts a firestorm in England. And the New York Times is running editorials against Elon Musk. What were you doing? What did you mean by doing this? And you're supporting Tommy Robinson, who's not a nice guy. Well, as I said, when you silence the nice people by calling them names, it's only people like Tommy Robinson who are going to speak the truth. And you give them glamour and you give them, and that's why I think sometimes Elon Musk, promotes Andrew Tate or something like that, because he hears the truth and he doesn't hear the bad stuff coming out. We've got to be able to speak the truth and bless Elon Musk. This is the other thing. People in England are writing me and saying, God bless Elon Musk. Friends from England are saying, God bless Elon Musk for bringing this out. When women went and complained that they were told that they were the culprits. When fathers went to save their daughters, they were arrested for being Islamophobic. The people who did these things, still haven't all been punished. Whereas if you put out a tweet against Islam on Facebook or you put it on X, you can get arrested and literally put in prison. So now they say we should have a national inquiry. And they say, oh no, this is not a national thing. This should be done locally. But of course it's not done locally. And they have this lady minister, Kami Badenoch, who went after Keir Starmer, the prime minister, who was the chief prosecutor for 5 years when this is going on, and covered a lot of this up and really deserves to be slapped for it, even though he's apologized, but it hasn't cleared up. So there's this thing called Prime Minister Question Time, which is the greatest show in England, where people attack the prime minister and he has to answer them, and the ministers shout and yell, hear, hear, and no, boo, and all this stuff. So here is Kami Badenoch going after Starmer as he so well deserves. Cut 7.
The reason why a national inquiry is important is because this issue is systemic. It has been involving local and national officials, the police, prosecutors, and politicians. He talks about some of the local inquiries, but these interlinked issues cannot be covered by local inquiries alone. In fact, the leaders of the Manchester inquiry resigned because they couldn't get evidence, they couldn't summon witnesses, and not a single person in a position of authority has been held to account. The Prime Minister called for 9 inquiries in the last Parliament. Does he not see that by resisting this one, people will start to worry about a cover-up?
So again, and so then they voted it down. No national inquiry. Oh no, we don't need that. We're fine. Everything's great. It's like again, sanity dies in silence. You prioritize the color or gender firefighters. You prioritize the multiculturalism over people. You prioritize the earth over human beings, environmentalism over human beings. The only thing interesting about the earth is us. The earth is just a rock in space. You think it's beautiful? Guess what? Only people know what beauty is. Beauty is the connection of the mind to God through God's creation. That's what beauty is. I don't think animals experience beauty. Beauty is all in our mind. Everything is in our mind in this world. Everything important. You don't save the earth at the expense of human beings. You save it for human beings. I am a conservationist. I believe in keeping the earth clean and taking care of it. But that's not the same thing as putting up these stupid windmills that don't do anything so people can see. To save the smelt, you let the country burn down. It's like there are other fish to fry, as they used to say. And the thing that gets me too is these guys in power. They're so busy establishing their virtue. They're so busy strutting around their global socialist, credentials. They don't quit. They don't quit when they've done something wrong. Nobody has any shame. Nobody says, you know what? I let L.A., the mayor of L.A., I let it burn down. I'm resigning. I'm sorry. I'll just try and get, And so here's the thing. They attack Elon Musk. They attack Donald Trump for speaking the truth. And I've said this for a long time. Let me give you a crappy football metaphor, okay? Because we're coming into the postseason. I love NFL football. I'm thinking about it a lot. And one of the things I love best is the running game. I love a good running back. I love watching Pacheco or Kareem Hunt break through, and it's all this muscular. But there's something special about a quarterback making a run, because he's the main man, and sometimes he's not except for Josh Allen on the Bills, he's usually not the biggest guy. He's usually smaller, a little more lithe, and he's the most valuable guy. And so you don't want him to get hurt. So it's always really exciting when he runs. Before the quarterback can run, the blockers have to get the other blockers out of the way. And the blockers are big monsters. You don't want to invite a blocker to your house for dinner because he will eat the table. You say, have some potato chips, just eat the bowl. These guys are like animals. They're huge. They just knock these other guys out of the way. And then there's an opening, and the quarterback can run through that opening and run for daylight, right? And that's Trump, and that's Musk. And so when they're attacking Trump and Musk, they're saying, well, he's too big. He's an animal. He's grotesque. When they say this about these guys, they are the guys that they have to be taken out of the way. They are blocking for us. They are the big monsters who are blocking for us by calling out the rapists, by calling out the politically correct people, by calling out the people who let L.A. burn so they can be, multicultural DEI superstars. They are calling these people out. They are blocking for us, and they have opened up this lane for us to start telling the truth, telling it with kindness, telling it with love, but telling it relentlessly and with courage. We're the quarterbacks. Remember this. All this time, I don't worship any of these people. I don't worship Elon Musk. I don't worship Donald Trump, but I respect them and I see what they're doing. They're opening up a lane for us, the quarterback, the people, and we have to seize that moment and run for daylight. So I have to tell you, feeling the way I was feeling, I was up almost all of last night. I am so glad I have a Helix mattress. I'm not joking. It's like, I'm so happy that at least if I'm going to suffer with a cold, I'm going to be comfortable where I am lying in bed. One thing I've loved about this Helix mattress is how well it does temperature regulation, because I get into the sweats at night. I'm sure a lot of you have the same thing, but this mattress is great for that. It's easy to connect to other wearable devices so you can actually see the data to back up your sleep improvements. What makes Helix different is they don't just sell you a random mattress. They match you with the perfect one for your body and sleep style. Whether you're a side sleeper, back sleeper, or somewhere in between, they've got you covered. And trust me, when you find the right match, you'll wonder how you ever slept on anything else or even lay down on anything else. Right now is actually the perfect time to upgrade your sleep because Helix is offering an incredible deal. Go to helixsleep.com/Klavan to get 25% off site-wide plus 2 free dream pillows with any mattress purchase. That's a good deal. That's helixsleep.com/Klavan for 25% off site-wide plus 2 free dream pillows with any mattress purchase. helixsleep.com/ and I know what you're thinking, /Klavan. What kind of word is that? It's Klavan. No E's. I just make it look easy. Chapter 3, Greenland, my Greenland. So what I'm trying to get to here is that the way we find the truth, know the truth, speak the truth. You don't believe every conspiracy just because it's the opposite of what people are, what the liars are saying or what the censors are trying. You certainly do not sign on with haters simply because they have been the only people with the courage to speak the truth, because they don't care if they're called racist or anti-Semitic or, sexist or Islamophobic. They don't care, so they say the truth. I'll sign on with their truth, but I will not sign on with their hatred. And we have to understand Trump, because how Trump is covered, because they cover Trump as if everything he says is the place he's trying to get to. And Trump is a negotiator. Trump is always on the move. When he says something at point A, he's trying to get to point D. People keep saying he's not smart enough to play 3D chess. Here's the thing. He's just playing 2D chess better than everybody else. I've actually come to believe this. He actually is doing something that's really, really smart, which he's not showing the news people how smart he is. He's telling them what he wants his opponents to hear. So he gave this hilarious press conference this week. Absolutely great. He sounded like Napoleon. He's going to rename the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America, which I'm absolutely pleased. I think we should rename Mexico the southern part of America. He's going to take back the Panama Canal. He's going to take over Canada. I'm not in favor of that. Canada's too boring to take over. It's like taking over soccer, making it an American sport. No. But he also wants Greenland, which is a free colony, but a free possession of Denmark. And so here's what he says, cut 9.
Well, we need Greenland for national security purposes. I've been told that for a long time, long before I even ran. I mean, people have been talking about it for a long time. You have approximately 45,000 people there. People really don't even know if Denmark has any legal right to it. But if they do, they should give it up, because we need it for national security. That's for the free world. I'm talking about protecting the free world. You don't even need binoculars. You look outside, you have China ships all over the place. You have Russian ships all over the place. We're not letting that happen. We're not letting it happen. And if Denmark wants to get to a conclusion, but nobody knows if they even have any right, title, or interest. The people are going to probably vote for independence or to come into the United States. But if they did do that, then I would tariff Denmark at a very high level.
So here's the thing, all right? Trump, this is why I'm happy that the press remains corrupt and stupid, because we're going to erase them, the legacy media. We're going to erase them. We're going to turn them to dust. And the stupider they are, the easier it's going to be. And what Trump is doing, he's not talking to the media. He's not talking to you and me. He's talking to China. And he's using the media because he knows they'll get hysterical, and he knows they'll call him, Napoleon or whatever. He's going to conquer all these places. What he is saying is, look, the Panama Canal, in Panama, they say the Chinese are not running the Panama Canal. Yeah, they are. They've got two companies, they're Chinese-owned companies managing two ports at the canal's entrances, right? And they have Chinese firms patrolling it, the patrolling army. This is the way the Chinese work. We come into your country and say, we'll help you out, but you've got to now wave the pride flag. That's what we say. What they say is, here's a Mercedes and a casino, and we're going to police it for you. And by the way, we'll get all your minerals from your mine. And that's the way they work, okay? So they have ports, they have companies running our ports in America and up and down the western coast of the Americas, of North America and South America. And they know what they're doing. And Greenland is, in fact, as the world gets a little warmer and the path to the Arctic opens up, and there are all these minerals up there, these precious minerals that we depend on, they are, in fact, China's renewing their Navy, making it stronger while our Navy is falling apart and getting old and decayed. And so all of these things are happening. And what Trump is saying is that game is over. That game is over. If you are going to move on us, we're not going to just sit here and let you surround us, which is what they are doing. And people, the fact checkers, the so-called fact checkers, keep saying, well, Trump says that the Chinese are running the Panama Canal, but they're not. Yeah, they are. They're just doing it by subtle means. And what he's saying is, I see you, I spot you, and I'm coming after you, and I see you and I raise you, and we're coming after you. If I have to, I'm going to take over Greenland and Canada too while I'm at it. Great. Keep it up. So you and I, because the press is not going to reform itself, and they still have more reporting power than we do, right? They still have more reporting power than we do, and that's an important fact. This is something we need to build. Now that we've won this victory of debunking them, we have to build journalistic enterprises to find the truth and report the truth. But in the meantime, you've got to learn how to read the truth so you don't get snapped up into the hatefulness or the conspiracy nonsense or the lies that come out constantly, along with good information that you get on social media. So spotting the truth is important. And as I'll show you in just a moment, it's really important in the arts as well. Here is a great tool that will help you with your health routine and with your workouts and all the stuff I do, I have to say, to keep myself alive for just one more day. You want real-time insights into your metabolism through something as simple as your breath. Use Lumen. Lumen is the world's first handheld metabolic coach. All you need to do is breathe into it first thing in the morning, and you'll know exactly what's happening with your metabolism, whether you're burning fats or carbs. And based on your measurements, Lumen creates a personalized nutrition plan just for you. You can also breathe into it before and after workouts and meals so you know exactly what's going on in your body in real time. Lumen will give you tips to keep you on top of your health goals for all those 2025 New Year resolutions. I hope you're still keeping those resolutions. Your metabolism is your body's engine powering everything you do. When you optimize your metabolic health, you can experience improved energy levels, better fitness results, and enhanced sleep quality. I've personally found that understanding my metabolism has transformed my approach to my workouts. Take the next step to improving your health. Go to lumen.me/Klavan to get 20% off your Lumen. That is LUMEN.me/KLAVAN, no E's, and you get 20% off your purchase. And thank you, Lumen, for sponsoring this episode. Final chapter, Complete Unknown. Now, I want to talk about the arts and culture because I want to talk about this as much as I possibly can because it's everything. It's why I started becoming a commentator in the first place. I love the arts. And, I love certain arts more than others, of course, and I love literature and I love storytelling most of all, probably. But I love painting, any visual arts. I'm crazy about them, good music. But the thing is, and the only way to save the arts is to love them. Now, all these conservatives, I hate video games, and I hate this, and I hate that. You're not going to do anything if you hate the arts. The arts are an act of love. So dedicating your life to the arts, as I have, is an act of love. And the arts themselves are a way of producing beauty. But the arts have a different idea of what truth is than a newspaper. We know this, right? Richard III is one of Shakespeare's great history plays. There's historians debate whether Richard III was truly a villain. In Shakespeare, he's determined to be a villain, as he himself says. And so he's not telling history necessarily. He's talking about evil, and he's talking about sex and all and kingship and power and all the things that matter in human life. That's what the arts are for. But when the left takes over the arts, they become a vehicle of propaganda. And I don't want to take them back to become a vehicle of propaganda for the right. I simply want other voices to be able to speak. And that's the battle we've been fighting from the beginning. So let's take a look at this movie, A Complete Unknown, about Bob Dylan. And it's directed by James Mangold. And I'm kind of a Mangold fan. He made the only superhero movie that I think matters at all, which is Logan. And I wrote a piece about the meaning of Logan and how it links up the superhero genre to the Western genre to Jesus Christ, and I think it's very brilliantly done. And Mangold wrote me a very nice note about my article, and he's an interesting guy because he's a very talented director, but he doesn't stick with one genre, so he doesn't get the same kind of auteur worship that other guys like Martin Scorsese gets. Still, really good director, and he tells the story of Bob Dylan coming to New York and linking up with Pete Seeger because he worships Woody Guthrie and other folk singers. And Pete Seeger is a very generous guy, and he helps him out. And obviously, Bob Dylan becomes an icon. And then 4 years later at the Newport Folk Festival, Dylan, feeling kind of oppressed by fame and by his genre and all this, breaks out of the genre by going electric and breaks with Pete Seeger and breaks with the folk writers. And that's the story, right? And so there's Timothy Chalamet plays Dylan. I have to say, because Chalamet looks so girly, I always expect him to be a lousy actor, but he's actually a good actor, and he's absolutely great in this. He's terrific in this. And Pete Seeger, the folk singer, is brilliantly played by Edward Norton, just one of the terrific actors out there. And he comes across, he's a fan, where Dylan is sleeping around and doing all the 60s stuff. Norton is a family man. He's a man of patience. He's got professional generosity. He helps Dylan achieve a kind of fame that he himself, that Pete Seeger himself, can never achieve. And here's a scene where Dylan is invited to a party and they're trying to pressure him into performing at this fundraiser. And he bumps into Pete Seeger, and this is a little exchange they have, Norton and Chalamet, cut 10.
Hey, Pete.
Hi.
How you doing?
Good.
Nice
Great to see you.
How you doing? We made around the world in 80 days, huh?
It's a magic carpet ride. Just full of wonder. Full of wonder.
This is Becca, by the way.
Nice to meet you. This is my wife, Toshi.
Nice to meet you. I absolutely love your music. I'm such a big fan, Mr. Seeger.
Pete. Harold is putting the lean on you there? Trying to get you to play?
Yeah, a little bit.
All right, well, don't hold it against him. It's for a good cause. Want to use this beauty?
They always keep it handy, huh, Pete? He's like a gunfighter with a six-gun. He's keeping it close.
He's talking about his banjo. So they left out one thing, right? So the movie, I thought the movie was good. It was entertaining. It was really well acted. Music, I'm not a big fan of that kind of music, but more of a fan of that than just straight out rock. And I enjoyed it. Like all movies now, it's 20, 30 minutes too long, but still, it's pretty good. They leave out one thing, though. Seeger was a Soviet stooge. He may have been a nice guy. I don't know. He may have been a lovely husband. He seems to have been a devoted father and husband in the movie, and I'm willing to believe all that. But he was also a Soviet stooge and a Stalinist propaganda. There's an article in City Journal by Howard Hussock called America's Most Successful Communist about Pete Seeger. And what he points out is that pop music and all our arts have been taken over by the left. But that didn't have to happen. This is what Hussock says in City Journal. The politicization of American pop dates from the 1960s, but grew out of a patient leftist political strategy that began in the 1930s with the Communist Party's Popular Front. The Popular Front sought to enlist Western artists and intellectuals, some of them not party members, but fellow travelers, to use art, literature, and music to insinuate the Marxist worldview into the broader culture. That was Pete Seeger. He later on said he may have made a mistake about Stalin. Stalin may have had a few flaws, but basically he was promoting Soviet communism through his songs. His big song was, of course, "Where Have All the Flowers Gone," which is an anti-war song. And you think, well, we all hate war. Why is an anti-war song necessarily Soviet? But the point was always pay attention to the injustices of America, race injustice, money injustice. But the unspoken other side of that was that the Soviet Union was doing it right. And that's why a lot of the protesters during the Vietnam War were supporting the communists in Vietnam, who then came into Cambodia and slaughtered peasants. And then they blamed America for that, too. If you go back and watch the killing fields, he says, well, they got angry because we fought with them, and that's why they slaughtered people. No, they slaughtered people because that's what communists basically do. So Pete Seeger was singing about the rights of minorities and women and all that stuff. And all of those things are real causes, but they were meant to distract and to say, well, look, the Soviet Union treats black people better. They treat women are equal in the Soviet Union. It was true. They had to go to work just like everybody else. And Dylan joined in on this. He had a song like "The Times They Are Changing." Here's just a clip of that, cut 12.
Mothers and fathers throughout the land, and don't criticize what you can't understand. Your sons and your daughters are beyond your command. Your old road is rapidly aging. Please get out of the new one if you can't lend your hand, for the times they are a-changing.
Now, I have to say that I grew up in this period, and I always thought that song was a little bit ungrateful. It should have been, hey, mothers and fathers, thanks for killing the Nazis. We don't have to fight, but we want to pretend we're heroes, so we'll attack America where people don't hurt us and let the communists slaughter peasants in Cambodia because the times they are changing. Those were the lyrics I would have written, so a little different than Dylan's lyrics, but still, it's a moving song, and he's a terrific writer, songwriter, Dylan. But the thing is, so the story in the movie is that he basically goes electric. And this is what the people at the folk festival can't stand about him, that he goes electric and they're not, they're playing banjos and guitars. But there's a really good piece, good writer, Michael C. Monahan in the Free Press. I like Monahan, and he writes a piece called "The Truth" about Bob Dylan's falling out with Pete Seeger. The 60s folk singers didn't hate Dylan because he went electric, as a complete unknown suggests. It was because he didn't care about their lefty politics. Dylan was an artist, like I'm an artist, okay? Artists are a certain kind of people. He didn't want to be constrained by the politics. He wanted to do stuff with his music, right? And he had this ongoing affair with Joan Baez, who was very lefty and who promoted some of his songs. And after he went electric, she didn't complain about his sound. She wrote a song to him. It's just an awful, awful, terrible, soppy song called To Bobby, in which she said, "Oh, come back, Bobby, and take care of the poor starving children, and they come back to leftism." Here's a little clip of this. It's just a cringy song. Cut 13.
Do you hear the voices in the night, Bobby? They're crying for you. See the children in the morning light, Bobby. They're dying. Perhaps the pictures in the Times could no longer be put in rhymes when all the eyes of starving children are wide open.
All right, so that's the real story of A Complete Unknown. Is not just the guy started going, Dylan went electric. It's that he's told the left, I'm not your pawn. I'm just going to do my art and I'm going to write the songs that I want to write, while Pete Seeger kept this kind of iron leftist grip on folk music. Now, the divergence here does not make this a bad movie. Just like Richard III is not a bad movie if we find out that Richard III is not a bad play if we find out that Richard III was in fact a great guy. That's not the thing. That's not what he's writing about. We have to understand the arts as the arts, and we have to love the arts. You can't. This is the thing about the left, is you cannot beat up on these artists. I understand that they show up at these award show and they say things outside their field of knowledge, and artists are children. I mean, I'm telling you this. We want to tell stories. We want to make pictures. We want to write songs. Artists are children. And ask my wife about this. She'll tell you, it's like, she's like, it's like living with a gigantic 5-year-old. She's like, oh, by the way, you insulted all these people in Hollywood. Now we don't have any money anymore. And I'm like, oh, look, there's a cloud that looks like a unicorn. That's what it's like with artists. We have to understand that about that. But we have to build a culture around them by our behaviors, by our beliefs, like we did when basically we took, the conservatives took control of the movies with the Hayes office, which I'm not necessarily in favor of. But in other words, the artists will come up if we don't show up for their movies, or if we protest what's in their movies, or we point out the truth about their movies, then we will have an effect on them. But you can't do it by hating the arts themselves. You can't do it by constantly railing about the arts. That movie about the atom bomb, the one about the Christopher Nolan film. What's in it? What? Oppenheimer. Sorry. Yeah, I got Oppenheimer. The Oppenheimer film. That Oppenheimer was a communist. I mean, he didn't join the party, but he was a communist, and that film was very slanted in that way. But still, it's a very good movie. I don't think it's a great movie, but it's a very good movie. But here's the thing. The arts are beautiful, and artists are kind of beautiful souls. They're beautiful childlike souls, and they're going to make beautiful things. And we have to encourage that and allow it. But it would be a good idea if we could have the kind of influence that the communists had without the same sort of deceit. Let us, educate people. Let us have our intellectuals, let them write for the people. Let them not just, hide away in places. But we should build, this is another thing we need to build, is we need to build popular venues with intellectual weight. It can't always, one of the things that the right always does, we always play to the lowest common denominator, because people on the right tend to be the least educated people and the most educated people, the smartest, and the people who are not, they may not be dumb, but they're not as educated as others. And that's what makes up the right. The people in the middle, those are kind of the people who sort of drift into leftism because they're not paying much attention because it sounds very nice. So again, I just want to end by saying this. I understand that this censorship regime, coming out of the censorship regime is, like I said, it's like coming out of a nightmare of oppression, a nightmare of dishonesty. The fact that they were cutting pieces off children, to make them into, to shape them into the opposite sex. I mean, the evil of that still boggles the mind, but it's only emblematic of the evil of hiring people because they're lesbians to fight fires, or emblematic of hiring people according to the color of their skin, whether that color is white or black. I don't care which bigot you are. It doesn't matter to me at all. The idea that racism is not a sin is just ridiculous. All of those things we're waking up for this. And what do we want to replace it with? Well, we don't want to replace it with the hatred on the other side. We don't want to replace it on clamping down and censorship on the other side. We want to replace it by understanding what it is as Americans we're saying. We're not saying fascism. We're not saying communism. We're saying freedom. We're saying liberty, and liberty only exists through love. It's only the truth that sets you free, right? It is the truth that sets you free. And we shouldn't be afraid. We shouldn't be afraid to think, oh, if I'm not hateful, I won't have the same strength. If I don't hate black people, I won't be able to talk about black crime. If I don't hate Muslim people, I won't be able to talk about Islamic violence. That's just not true. You know, love and truth and beauty, those aren't just virtues. They're weapons. They're weapons. And now we have these big monster blockers like Donald Trump and Elon Musk clearing a path for us to use those weapons. We should get on the offensive and charge by making art, by doing journalism, by doing the positive. We've debunked them. We've undermined them. We've exposed them. But now we have to build the structures to review the arts, to love the arts, to make the arts, and to do journalism, to do real journalism, and to spread the ideas that we have. It can't just be about hating them. It has got to be about loving what we are, which is a free people, a Christly people, a people even if we don't believe we are in the tradition that comes down to us through Christianity. That's the only reason people should be free, because they're free souls who have to exercise their free will to become virtuous. You can't just be virtuous by force. You have to exercise your free will. That's why we're here. That's what we're doing. This is the time to begin. It is an amazing, amazing time. Don't follow the Pied Pipers of hatred. Don't follow the Pied Pipers of conspiracy theories. Just follow the truth. Follow the truth. The truth will set us free. Matt Walsh's film, What is a Woman?, sparked the cultural conversation. Now, Identity Crisis, a powerful new film from the DailyWire and Turning Point USA, goes even deeper, exposing the heartbreaking consequences of radical gender ideology while highlighting stories of resilience and courage in the pursuit of truth. Starting now and for the next 72 hours, Identity Crisis is streaming for free on X. We chose to make it free for 72 hours because this is a story everyone needs to see. It's raw, unflinching truth about how this dangerous ideology is affecting children and families. Creating bold, premium content like this is not easy. It costs money, and it is essential. That's why the Daily Wire depends on your support to keep reshaping the cultural landscape. Follow @RealDailyWire on X. Watch Identity Crisis, share it, spread the word. All right, Klavan Klapbacks.
You don't understand. I could have had class. I could have been a contender. I could have been somebody instead of a bum.
That's an actual clip of Joe Biden talking after the election. Klavan Klapbacks is Klavan Klapbacks, both spelled with a K, Klavan, and then Klapbacks spelled with a K at dailywire.com. Klavan Klapbacks at dailywire.com. You can write about the show. You can write about your personal problems. You can write about political ideas, and I will answer as many as I can. Today starts with Garrett. He says, I want to thank you for all the wisdom you routinely provide in your show. You've been a great help in assisting me to make sense of hard questions I've had in regards to faith. I recently purchased The Truth and Beauty and look forward to reading it. However, I can no longer deal with today's right-wing pundits making me feel like an untouchable for being unmarried. I don't disagree with virtually any of the points expressed, but it makes me feel like a loser and a failure at life who has missed out on the joys and purpose that come with being married. I'm openly asking, what's the point of loving God and living righteously if it's impossible to experience any true joy or purpose without a spouse? Any advice would be appreciated. Well, first of all, I understand that. We praise marriage and children because we feel it's the center of life. But the center of life is not the only place where you can be satisfied. I always say a great violinist is not at the center of life. We don't need violinists. He's a luxury. He's an extra. We don't need people like me. We don't need artists. We're luxuries. We're extras. We need garbage men are more important. But that doesn't mean that everybody has to be a garbage man. And look, being a mother is, I think, at the spiritual center of our lives. I think if you don't have motherhood in some sense at the spiritual center of your life, you're missing out on what life is actually about, that kind of connection between the physical and the spiritual. But and sacrifice, the sacrifice of love and stepping out of the male structures of power. But But that doesn't mean everybody does that. And the Bible is filled with people who can't become mothers. The Bible is filled with people who have other roles to play. They're prophets. They're, doing business. They're doing all kinds of things. But we can't stop talking about the center, because if the center doesn't hold, then everything collapses. So nobody is saying you are less than. They're saying you're off center. And even that, I don't even want to mince words about it. I still think a mother, an at-home mother, is the center of any free country and any thriving country. But still, we all do what we can do. I'm not going to become a mother. Other people are not going to get married. Life may just turn out that way, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't praise those things. Just like I was never in the military, and I regret that. That was a mistake I made because I was young and out of my mind, and it was a weird time. But still, that was a mistake I made. But that when people say, well, you can't talk about the military because you're a chicken hawk, I just say, no, I can talk about the military because I respect them more for the fact that I depend on them. I depend on them. I depend on moms. I depend on homes. I depend on all those things for our country to survive. So let's not say we're so sensitive that we can't praise the people who make things work and who hold up the center. We may just have another assignment from God, but trust to God, he's got a plan for your life. That's all you can do. Finn says, "Oh, Hot Gandalf, I'm a huge fan of your books. First read the Mind War trilogy and the Homelander series when I was in middle school." I love hearing that, by the way. "I didn't get the chance to ask this question when I met you and your son Spencer, no relation, at Landmark Bookstore in Nashville." So here it is. "I wanted to respond to your question months ago on the hopelessness of young people. I struggled in high school with depression and was suicidal. Even though I had friends and went on lots of dates, I couldn't fill the hole and finally lost my mind. I think that many people in Gen Z, myself included, deify relationships." So this is kind of connected to this. "I think that once we find that person, we think that once we find the right person to love, we'll be complete. But now I'm going back to school and joining the Army through ROTC, and I've committed to not dating until I graduate in 4 years. My question: is it right for me and other young men to ignore romantic relationships to focus on career so that one day we can offer a life to a future spouse?" This is the kind of thrive then wive idea, which I don't necessarily agree with. What I know about love and relationships is that sometimes they come when you're not looking for them, just like happiness. You can't get happiness by seeking happiness. You get happiness by seeking who you are and God and finding how you and God are connected and what he wants you to do. That's how you find happiness. And you don't find love necessarily by looking for love, but I think you have to put yourself out with other people. I think that if you are closed away, and if you don't participate in your community, and if you don't go to the places where people like you go, you make it less likely. But don't go looking for love. Just go looking for life. If you go looking for life, I think love will find you if you're meant to find it. So become a member today, because now we're going to plunge you into Klavanlessness, because this part of the show is over. It's time for Member Block. So become a member today. Do you understand the words that I'm saying to you? Go to dailywire.com/subscribe. Use code Klavan at checkout for 2 months free on all annual plans. We don't know how long we don't know how long my life will last, but we don't know how long my voice will last. So you want to become a member now so you can get every bit of Klaveniness you can while there's Klavanness to be had. If you're not a member, become a member. If you are a member, come to Member Block.